The history that is most commonly taught in this world looks like a patchwork quilt. We know that there were Egypt, Babylon, Greece, and Rome, but usually no connections between those are described or even mentioned. Thus, all the historical data seems as a number of separate amazing facts. The Unpatched History project is aimed at presenting history as a whole. Everything has its own cause and effects, and in this project we are going to put all facts together like pieces in a puzzle.
There are two dominating theories about the origin of mankind: creation theory, people were created by God, and Darwin's theory, through evolution apes became people. None of those theories have enough evidence to prove themselves true, so they are called theories, and everyone upholds the one he prefers. Personally, I support the creation theory, but in this video we are showing historical sequences from the point of view of Darwin's theory. It is important to notice that all time borders in prehistoric period are quite rough, and could vary from one science group to another. As one lecturer said, the history is an accurate science, plus minus 1,000 years is an usual deal.
Ancient world is divided on a few periods: Stone Age, Copper Age, Bronze Age collapse, Iron Age up to Christmas. Stone Age. Stone Age is divided on Paleolithic Age, Lower Paleolithic, Middle Paleolithic, Upper Paleolithic, Mesolithic Age, Neolithic Age, Pre-Pottery Neolithic, Pottery Neolithic. Since this time, scientists are identifying the found remains as humans. Lower Paleolithic Age. Our knowledge about Lower Paleolithic Age is strictly limited. Almost nothing can be claimed with sure, as we have no evidence about the life in that period. From Lower Paleolithic Age, scientists started dividing humans from animals. The remains of the first humans and their settlements were found in Africa. The properties that divided first humans from other apes were walking upright, being carnivorous, ability to touch the palm with their thumb, ability to craft weapons and tools, and use of fire. So the monkeys started walking upright, ate meat, were doing like this, and because of that they were able to make tools and fire. Thus they became humans.
Middle Paleolithic Age. This period of history is also pretty dark, as there was no writing and statehood. The only knowledge source that is available to us is from archaeological excavations. According to the excavations, people from the Middle Paleolithic lived in small prides, common tribal system. The cross-tribal marriages were a common rule in that period. It looks like ancient people found out that close relations, breeding, is determinant for progeny. Therefore, after marriage, a woman passed into the tribe of her husband. Unfortunately, that had a negative impact on development of culture. Nevertheless, in the Middle Paleolithic, people have created bone flute, rough sculptures mostly of Venus, and jewelry made out of shells, feathers, and stones. Thus, in that time, humans were already humans and created material and spiritual culture. We know nothing about their beliefs, but it looks like they have a religion and faith in afterlife. We can say that based on their burials. The remains were placed in a grave in fetal position with items for afterlife. Usually those were meat, flowers, and eggs. Cannibalism was rare and mostly ritual in regions there it wasn't vital for survival, though during the Ice Age it was a common phenomenon. Also, battles for territory were a usual thing in that period, and some caves changed hands many times. Surprisingly, the Paleolithic medicine was quite successful. For example, the remains show that 70% of fractures were fixed properly. At the end of Middle Paleolithic, people started spreading from Africa to other lands. From a number of different Homo sapienses, Homo neanderthalis stood out and dominated over a long time. until they were drawn out or assimilated by Homo sapienses.
Upper Paleolithic Age. The main achievement of that period is invention of sling, which enabled people to hunt from a bigger distance. Safety, as well as hunting little prey. Varied diet. Mesolithic Age. In different places, Mesolithic occurred in different time. Its main features was familiarization of microliths, which led it to the appearing of bows and harpoons. Also, first canoe was constructed in Mesolith. It seems it was no need in canoe before the appearing of harpoons. Neolithic Age. It was the time when the famous megaliths were first on stage. They are surrounded by mystery. We are not sure how they were crafted and what were they used for. Pre-pottery Neolithic. In some regions, this period came earlier, in some later, but there were a number of common characteristics in that era. Sedentary life, establishment of agriculture, matriarchy, fairs, in-house burials. First houses were made of roughly treated stone blocks. The entrance was beside the ground and looked as a small round hole, just enough for one person to fit in. It was designed to be able to escape from a pursuing predator, which simply couldn't go through such a small pathway. Pre-pottery Neolithic was the first time ever when people had enough food to store it for future. People even started to exchange food for other items. So the need to store the crops was the precise reason for occurrence of pottery. The burials during this period were made under the floor of the house where the person lived. It is obvious that this action had religious roots, but we will probably never know them. Perhaps the dead still remained a part of the family. However, it looks like they feared the deads. A huge round stone was placed on the dead's body chest. Who knows, probably even ancient people believed in ghosts and undead.
Pottery Neolithic. The specialties of pottery Neolithic were molding ceramic, stock raising, professions and specializations, hierarchy and social inequality, beginning of the court system, dawn of male gods, walls around the settlements, pastures surrounded by earthworks, cemetery outside the settlements, houses have stopped being automatic strongholds, fairs, clay writing, counting. The first way to create ceramic pots was clay molding. Although the pots were made by coating a stick-made frame with clay, then they were placed into the fire where sticks were burnt and clay dish remained. The next way to create pottery was sticking one piece to another. This is a miracle painted just from Mesopotamia. The pottery of that time was decorated with drawings and overpaint individually. That means the potter had to spend a lot of time to decorate each dish he made. That indicates that there weren't too much pots to decorate. The development was slow and logically connected one with another. When the society started producing agricultural and pottery products, began stock raising, crafting tools and so on, the professions and specializations occurred themselves. These led to appearance of hierarchy, and that led to establishment of social inequality, as there were people who knew when to plant crops and others who were able to graze cattle. The society became more complex. It became necessary to solve difficult cases, and that turned to the beginning of the court system. Although male gods have appeared, probably neighbors started raiding each other, or people just wanted to separate themselves from nature, but they started building walls around the settlements. The first pastures also were protected by earthworks, and they were reinforced with wooden spears orientated towards the pasture. It shows that the animals weren't used to live with humans and tried to escape as soon as they got a chance.
In the pottery Neolithic, the cemeteries were placed outside the settlements. There were too much people to bury them under the floor of the houses. The architecture of the houses are also changed. Settlements were protected by walls, so houses could be stopped being autonomic strongholds. In different climatic zones, houses were built from different materials: clay, cane, sticks, and stone. The fares in pottery Neolithic grew a lot because a number of goods increased as well as a number of people. The trade has created a need, not yet to write, but to count. All notes were made on the clay stamps.
Copper Age. Also, this time is called Halcyolith or Eneolith. Some scientists still not count Copper Age as a period and add it as late as pottery Neolithic. This makes ancient world history periodization even more confusing. The main feature of Copper Age is appearance of copper in man's life. Commonly thought that ancient people have mistaken chunks of copper for stones, but they realized that copper wasn't a usual stone that could be broken or crushed. Instead, it could be forged into tools and weapons. These discoveries were made quite late as copper nuggets were placed in particular areas where people settled late. The first copper deposits were found in Mesopotamia and Pakistan, but soon it was also found in Western Europe and around Black Sea.
At the beginning, copper was really rare, and it was mostly used for jewelry, whereas tools and weapons were made out of stones and bones. However, the everyday life has changed. Houses were now built from non-burnt brick, and ash hills grew around them. Ash hills were an analogy of rubbish bins, where all junk, ash, and remains from the hearth were thrown. Ash hills are a true treasure for archaeologists. Ceramic decorations also changed. Geometrical patterns appeared on it. That means that humanity had already knowledge of basic geometry. Somewhere around that time spindles were invented. Since that time, people were able to make fabric and had an alternative cloth source to skin. The Matriarchy age was coming to its end. Some historians link it to the beginning of massive wars. Nevertheless, some other experts doubt that, because there are a number of military matriarchy societies in history. For example, the Iroquois, famous Indian tribe. The pastures were remote from settlements and gained the appearance we know today. The cemeteries were moved out of the settlements, and common graves replaced single burials.
At Copper Age, we found the first evidence about slavery, as it was more beneficial to use prisoners for work and feed them rather than kill. In Halkalit, there were a lot of new inventions made. Wire that was firstly used for jewelry, pottery wheel that increased amount of ceramic producing, wheel and horse taming that step up the mobility of people. The development of metallurgy led to appearance of stucco furnaces for copper melting. Also, tin was discovered. People were about to enter Bronze Age.